If I can be a real estate investor, all you people can do this too. I started a long time ago in a land far, far away from where we are now. It's been a great journey so far. So first, I just want you all to pat yourselves on the back. Congratulations for being here and spending your time on this today. The one most valuable thing we have is time. And so investing it on yourself and doing something like this, I think is really valuable. I certainly didn't write the book on real estate investing and neither did Ping. We've all just been around it and just learning as you go. And I spent a lot of time going to seminars, reading books, started off with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and sort of took it from there and sort of tried to figure out how do you do this and how do you make it work. Warren Buffett had a great line, which I always subscribe to myself. It's good to learn from your mistakes, but it's better to learn from other people's mistakes. So hopefully that's what I can share with you a little bit today in terms of, sort of what's going on. When I was a kid, my sister used to call me Ferris. That's an 80s reference to the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and because he was just like Teflon and nothing got him. Like my brother would go out at night and like just skip coming home for his curfew. And I figured out if I came home and told my parents I was home, I could go right back at the front door again and I didn't get grounded like he did. Tried to sort of bring that through with me throughout my life and apply that to real estate specifically as well, which has actually done me really well. So in the beginning, my wife and I, we bought just a small little 2-bedroom condo in Burnaby, just outside of Vancouver. Now we have, by the end of the month, we're going to have 20 doors. The journey always starts with the first step. And so if you take it, you'll just be surprised where you can end up. I really got into this real estate investing stuff. There was a local guru in Vancouver here named Ozzy Jurok. He's a German guy and he always had a great accent. And so I spent $500 and went to his weekend course, and that's what got me started. He always had some great lines and great quotes, and I'm trying to sort of channel my best Aussie here for this presentation today. But I bought my first condo. My wife and I are living there. I sort of got into hey, let's invest in real estate. So I talked to my parents. My dad said, look, buy your own place first because it's capital gains free exempt. You can work with that. So we did that. Then I had no money left. So then how did I get to the next sort of stage of what I was doing here? So a quote I always really admired was from Sir Isaac Newton. If I've seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. And so I wrote sort of the Jerry Maguire letter to my family. I wrote in family members and I got my parents in, I got my father-in-law in. My father-in-law was a pretty handy guy. He had good connections. Got my 2 sisters in and my sister. And so we started the Cressler Partnership. We were going to take over the world. We're going to buy and fix and flip and make all this money and it's going to be great. And so I wrote this great letter. Everybody gets excited. We buy our first place. It's got a tenant. So we got to wait 2 months for her to move out. And then the Great Recession. We had to pivot. So off to plan B in that case. So from there, I'd done this Aussie Juror course. His big thing was taking action. So setting goals was a big piece of that. And so my goal was to own 10 properties in 10 years. I thought, this is great. I'm going to own 10 condos. I'm never going to sell any of them. And this is just going to be phenomenal. I got to learn more as I went forward and realizing owning 10 condos was not the way that I wanted to build a portfolio because then I was paying 10 management fees. And if one tenant moved out, then I was out the rent for that month. And so as I shifted, I decided to change that into 10 doors in 10 years. And it took me 9 years to get 11 doors. And we ended up shifting and changing the philosophy of how we worked. I took advantage of things like in BC here, the College of the Caribou converted to TRU. And at that time, I was looking at where can I invest and where makes sense and where can I get the dollars in. So Mel and I, we refinanced our place and we bought a condo in Kamloops because rents went from $600 a month for a 2-bedroom to $1,200 a month for a 2. And then the next time when we were sort of looking at making some purchases and making some moves, the NDP government had taken over here in BC. And I really recognized quickly that they were not landlord friendly. It was not going to be shifting in my direction. So we changed our perspective and we started buying in Alberta. We focused on Edmonton, and the city of Edmonton was speculating on allowing granny suites in duplex units to be legalized. So we went out and bought a couple of duplexes, speculating on the fact that we could convert those into legal fourplexes. And so that's where I've always tried to take advantage of the market if and where I can to be able to take, maximum impact on what we're doing. So you don't know what you don't know, right? This guy's just taking a great shot underwater, looks great, but it doesn't have to be that scary. I always like to sort of explain to people, there's the ivory tower. It would be great if you could time the market perfectly, get the best deal in the world, best rate, and it's fully leased out at the top value of rents that you can get, right? That never happens. There's where you are today, and you're going to end up somewhere in the middle. I think the striving for perfection thing is good, but it's not a reality that exists when you're talking real estate and in this world. And that's where you don't have to have all the answers, but you need to know somebody that you have the energy, you have the desire, you have the drive, you want to get there. You got no money, you got no experience. No problem. I started out with the royal we. When I got started, it was, my partners and I are investing in a fix and flip condo. And I would use that to start talking to other people about, I was driving the deal. I wasn't doing everything. It wasn't all my money, but I was explaining that. And you can use Property Hustle Group to do that as well, where you say, oh yeah, well, I'm a member of a group and we're investing down in Cleveland like right now. You can use that royal we, you can use the power of the group to be able to talk to people about what you're doing and use that credibility that the group has as your credibility to really get launched and sort of make all of this work. Or, there's lots of different group members in there that have experience. So, find the right partner that fits you. There's lots of people that have money but don't have time. There's lots of people that have time but don't have money. So it's just a matter of connecting with those people and sort of finding where you need to go in this. So when I look at investing in a new market, I build the machine backwards. What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? Say I want to be making, one of my goals right now is to make $5,000 a month cash flow out of my. How is I going to do that? BC is not really great for investing. Ontario, that's doable, but there's a lot of regulation and rules. So I was recognizing pretty quick, I'd invested in Alberta, but it's one of the hotter markets in the country right now. So none of that made sense to me. I recognized I was going to have to go to the States. So then it was a matter of reverse engineering that. So I sort of describe it as my funnel. Where did I want to go? Well, I want a landlord friendly state. So that's generally going to be red states. I want relatively low vacancy, somewhere in and around 5%. Metaphorically speaking, I like to buy in the winter or spring. So you buy, like when I was telling people I was buying in Edmonton, they were all going, that's a shit market. Why are you buying there right now? Well, exactly. I'm buying there because it's quiet. Nobody else is competing. I can grind deals and it makes sense. As the market gets going and more people are involved and whatnot, then that's when I want to be considering being a seller. I don't want to be buying when the market's hot. The psychology of buyers is to buy in sellers markets. And it's kind of goofy, but you feel confident because somebody else wants what you want. So that gives you confidence to sort of move forward. Basic sort of 101 kind of rules that I've sort of gotten used to working with is the 1% rule. So, that's your base starting line. Like when you're looking at stuff online, does the cash flow work within a 1% rule? And my minimum cap that I'm sort of going to sort of get started with something is going to be a 7 or 8. Was looking for somewhere there's a low cost of entry. I've got to build a team. I've got to find some partners. And then I want to look at areas that have multi-unit options to scale. I basically ran this model through all sorts of different places. I basically skipped Florida because I don't really think hurricanes are going to help anybody. Ran through Texas. So we looked at, Houston and Plano, went through Nevada and looked at Reno and Vegas, looked at Phoenix, looked at St. Louis. St. Louis was a very close option for this model to work, but they didn't have the multifamily kind of options I wanted. They're more single detached, and that just didn't give me that scalable level that I wanted to. So then it was a matter of how do I get good people on board to sort of, spring this trap and enter Ping into my conversation. As I'm poking around doing my research and homework, I came across one of his ads and I went, this is perfect. I'm a Canadian looking to invest in the US. That's what he does. So I got hooked up with these guys and sort of from there, I've continued to sort of build the model. I actually was looking at Columbus ahead of Cleveland, but when I was talking about buying in the winter or spring, Columbus sort of had its lift 2 years ago. It's already in the summer sort of mode where it's sort of doing well and prices have already moved. So I sort of felt I missed that market, but I thought being another large metropolitan area close to there could be a potential next zone for that, where you start to get that rippling effect in areas where you see that. How I went about it, using sort of some of my philosophy here and sort of what I believe in, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so good people know good people. So, I hitched my wagon with the property hustle guys because they're doing it and they were a shortcut, right? I can trade dollars for time, which for me, I think is really valuable and important. I could spend a year floundering to try and get myself, but getting a good agent and working with people that know what's going on the ground is a shortcut that really obviously helps in this situation. I've always known that you want to work with investor agents. That's a key piece of this whole equation. They know what you're going through. They can get you what you want. And if you can't find a good investor agent, you really got to train your agent to give you the things that you want and make that all work. From good relationships, you get some good luck every once in a while. So, I got on this road and wasn't sure where it was going to lead me or what it was going to take. So we write our first offer on a triplex on Dearborn Street. It was a good property. It had some warts on it, which I was fine with because then I could do some value add, which is always a good thing. And the people that were selling it bought it as a triplex. I went to go get financing on it. No, it's a duplex. Somebody had gone through and they'd spent the time and effort to put in a third unit. They just never legalized it and had it zoned for 3 units. The lender balked. They said, well, if it burns down, we can't build back what's there. And so they wouldn't touch it. So then again, I leaned into the network and got introduced to Chris over at Lend City. Maybe they can do something for me. Talked to my insurance broker. She had another guy to talk to. We ran it around and tried to sort of make it work. They would lend maybe on duplex numbers, but then, the numbers got out of whack. He said, okay, well, we'll do the deal, but you have to pay to legalize it all. There was just too much hair on it. So first deal up to bat, just walked on that. Didn't make any sense. So I generally spend, when I'm in this process and sort of working on this kind of stuff, I generally dedicate one evening a week. So that's generally a Thursday or Friday evening where I just go and sit on the net and just start running numbers. I look at different options and just start looking at areas and really just trying to immerse myself in what's going on. So I came across this unit over on Hazel. This looks good. Talked to my agent about it. Yes, let's go. Okay, yes, they have 3 meters on this one. It's not just 2 meters and it's zoned for what it's supposed to be. Right. Show up with the inspector at the inspection after getting an offer finally agreed to. And the inspector basically says, I did a walk around on this one. Don't spend money on this one. I'm not going to charge you. Let's just all walk away right. Having that good agent, having a good inspector, having that good relationship. So when I find a property inspector, I really do the deep dive on them and try to understand what they know, where they're coming, what their history is, because I'm not on the ground. So I need good eyes and ears that are looking after a place for me, not just some guy that's like ticking boxes and took a course on like, how to review a house. So make sure that you've got good people, good inspectors, and, interview them, ask questions, ask for references in terms of other people that they've worked with, ask for other agents that would recommend them. And if they're if they're investor agents or not, you want somebody that's going to give you the straight goods so that you're not just walking into a trap. So that one falls apart. So we move on to a wholesale deal that came through the group, and it was in Akron. I was really excited about it. Cash flow looked great. But as we started working through it, like the seller was just weird. He wouldn't get us access. He, would sort of say, okay, he would agree to access. And then like half the tenants didn't know what was going on. So like we're trying to do an inspection. We couldn't get in rooms. And, sometimes that's the one room that has the leak in it and stuff like that. So it was like walking through glue on this one. We got to the title point and just a bunch of stuff that wasn't expected showed up. And so, yeah, we just cut bait and ran on that one. It wasn't going to happen. So sometimes the best deal you do is the one you don't. I've learned that over the years as well. Through all of this, the property hustle guys have been Johnny on the spot, as my dad would always say. Like, you need something, Johnny's there. They're there to bounce ideas off of. I really found that useful and helpful. Anytime I needed documents or I needed another opinion, like for the Howard deal, it was rented by the room. And so no decent property manager would touch that. And cash flow is really good. I got to figure this out. We got to just make this happen somehow. And, Roman came through for me. He found me a property manager that would do, cover that. In the end, it was kind of like, well, this was not worth doing, but they stepped up and got me where I needed to go with that. So what next? This was one of Ozzy's great lines. So I've written 3 offers. I've gotten nowhere. Just keep going. Here's my offer. Here's my price. You don't like it? So what next? It's a great sort of line for real estate investing. There's always another opportunity out there. We're kind of standing at the bus stop, and you could get on this bus, but there's also always another bus too. So don't get too deflated on just one deal. I wrote 3 deals or 3 offers on, well, more than that actually, because we wrote offers on other places that just didn't work. But those were the 3 that we actually got accepted offers on. Then it finally worked. We found Wakefield. Great area. It's in Detroit Shoreway. And this is what I was sort of talking with Ping earlier, just as we were all sort of filtering onto this conversation here. If it's a deal, there's no red flag with like big neon arrows saying like deal here, because if there is, everybody's showing up to it. Like it goes into a bidding war, it ends up being overbid, and it doesn't end up being worth what it actually is. So you actually have to make the deal. So in this case, really desirable property because it's a side-by-side duplex. So nobody's living on top of each other. And then there's actually a unit in the back as well. So it's 2 standalone buildings. You don't have that sort of pancake triplex where everybody's standing on top of each other making noise. So it's a lot easier to manage tenant-wise. These guys had the not so nice, not so good kind of seller's agent who's sort of ornery, not easy to deal with. And he's sort of got a bit of a reputation in town, and nobody really likes dealing with these guys because they deal with a lot of out-of-town investors, and they sell them a big dream and a promise. And he would do stuff like, wouldn't give you access to property. Say, okay, well, you can go see the vacant unit. So just go see the vacant unit. If you're interested, then write me an offer. Okay, sure. So we shoot a video of the vacant unit. I get that from my agent. Look at it. Yeah, this all looks good. Let's move ahead. Then we do our inspection, and he just comes back with nothing's changed since you saw the unit to begin with when you wrote your offer. We're not going to accept any adjustments. Well, great. Yeah, you only showed me one of 3 units, so yeah, we're going to negotiate at this point because the other unit has their kid drawing all over the walls. We got some other things that are showing up in the electrical and the pieces and parts that aren't looking good. So having an experienced agent and working with that investor agent where you can stay even keeled and like know how to bite your tongue and deal with these sort of oddball agents is really helpful. I've got the experience from what I've been going through to know how to handle those people as well. Sometimes people just rely on their bluster and their bluff to sort of just bully people into submission. In this case, we ended up getting a good deal because this guy was just basically stopping this unit from being sold, and we just fought him with facts and information that we couldn't really get around. So we took our time, we did our homework on it. Person's more prepared for the negotiation generally. Next, after we got settled on that one, I sort of got back to a Thursday night, sort of checking out what's going on. This had been on the market 2 days. I looked at the numbers and went, holy, if I can get this for 159, like this is a smoking deal. Well, yeah, so did everybody else think so. So the disadvantage of working in Cleveland, and one of the things I find really weird in BC here, like we have timelines to stuff. Like when you write an offer, that offer is open until Saturday. So if I write an offer Friday night, I can leave it open until Saturday at noon. You either got to make a decision with me or not. Whereas in Cleveland, it just sort of goes into the ether. You make your offer and they'll get back to you. We wrote our offer on Friday. We didn't hear back and sort of get everything sort of cemented until Thursday. We used something that's a bit of real estate magic. I would call it a referential clause here in BC. I don't know what you call it in Ontario, but it's like a step clause. So it's skirting the line of legality, but you can do it legally. And basically we said like, we'll top any other offer within 2 grand to be the lead offer. You just have to show us sort of what the first page of the other contract is and all that kind of stuff. So the numbers still need to work though, right? Like I'm in competition. Everybody knows you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. Do you want to have some of something or some of nothing? The numbers still made sense. It was still a really good option at 174. That 5 grand doesn't really break the bank on this one. It's got a higher cash on cash return than the other unit that we just dealt with. And so that one we're going to close on the 31st. Haven't gotten that one quite across the line yet, but it's a good unit. Like it's turnkey. Somebody said in the comments the other day, nothing's ever turnkey. Yeah, no, this has a rotten deck off the back. But the main thing is that insides have been done. The guy had like his list of like, we did the siding this year, we did the furnaces this year, we did kitchen rebuilds, this year. So we had that whole list of stuff. Tenants don't necessarily care what outside necessarily looks like. They were more worried about their own little den that they're going to be in and what that looks like. And this is a really nice starting point. So this is just one that we're just going to add into the portfolio. It's just a buy and hold, nothing too special to this one. Day after I got this offer accepted on that one, wholesale deal for 12304. Curtains showed up. It would be great if it was just 1234. I'd really, my brain loved that stuff. So I'm approaching this one as a burst strategy. Sort of was talking on the wholesale side of things, and it was like, well, I just signed off on this other deal. I don't know whether that's going to go ahead or not. It looks really good, but once we get the inspection and everything done, I don't know. It could be, the floorboards could be like full of termites or something. I don't know. So maybe I'll do that deal. Maybe we'll, this one's on the hook. Yeah, I think we got to find a way to make this one work. The money that I was going to use, I only had for one deal. So how am I going to do 2 deals at once? Well, one of the strategies I use, and this is just sort of a way of just general conversation that I kind of being in this kind of business is everybody always asks you, how's your day going? And I always respond, like, nobody really actually cares, right? Like, that's just sort of a greeting in Canadian culture. Nobody really wants to hear you say, oh, yeah, well, my dog just died and, I've got a backache. Life sucks. Like, but I always say, life is great. I'm buying a place in Cleveland. And people look at me because, like, I'm in Vancouver. People look at me like I'm crazy. Like, Cleveland? What? And it's just an icebreaker that just opens the door to a conversation. Some people just say, oh, that's nice, and move on. And some people actually you start the conversation. What are you talking about? So I'm going to do this deal. I've got a junior agent on our team. I'm a real estate agent here in Vancouver. I've got a junior agent. She's like, I want to do what you're doing, Nick. Like, bring me in on something and let me know what's going on. So it's like, when I saw this, I was like, this is going to be the perfect deal to do with her. So I said, yeah, here's the deal. I sort of ran her and her partner through the numbers. This is what it looks like. This is how we're going to do what's going on. They didn't have enough cash to just buy this outright for the 90K. I do have the cash, but it's maybe going to go into this other deal, but I also have something else closing. And so I was like, well, we could just float it on private financing for a month or two if we need to, or longer. We'll just see. So I wasn't really too worried about that. We sign up, we're doing the deal, get them on board as a partner. So we're going to do this as a burst strategy. So some people may or may not know what that is. Basically, you buy it for cash. It's a distressed property that you fix up. Then ERs are, rehab, rent, and refinance. So that's what we're going to do with this one. This is going to get them in the game, and we're going to get them, a hold of something. So it's their money in that's going to do all the renovations. I was talking to a guy in a buffet lineup at the Jericho Tennis Club on Father's Day. He said, "Oh, how's it going, Greg?" And I said, "Great. I'm buying a place in Cleveland." He went, "What?" Started the conversation, and I said, "Yeah," telling him sort of about this bird deal that we're going to do. And he's like, "So like, how does this? Where do you get the money from?" I was like, "Well, you can use your own money, or you can do short term, up front until you decide to refinance it and do it that way." He goes, "Well, where do you get your money from for that?" I said, "Well, I belong to this group. We're probably either going to look to source something through the group, or you can go the conventional way and sort of there are, Lend City can do these kinds of things, 65% loan, that kind of stuff." He goes, "Well, what if I could lend you some money? Would you work with me?" I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely." So most lenders will, have a balloon payment or an initiation fee or something like that. We're just doing a flat 10% annual rate on this one. I've got really good financing on that. I'm not paying a bunch extra up front. And he's just putting it on a line of credit. He's just going to take 4 points to himself. And we have easy peasy. I basically, again, went to the property house guys and said, "Yeah, I'm going to need some documents here. Can you guys get me a loan agreement that I can work with?" And sure enough, like, yeah, here you go. So I'm controlling this whole deal. I've got no money in the game, and I'm going to be owning 30% of this property at the end. Plus, I'm running a management fee. So just for holding the property and ongoing, I'm getting myself a monthly little piece of that. And once we finish and convert all of the renovations and it gets refinanced, I get a payout there. So we're making some money along the way on this deal, and it was just a matter of being in the right place at the right time to say yes to a wholesale deal and just having conversations with people. This deal's just happened. Like, obviously I've got some thought in terms of trying to just bring this together, but there's the perfect case. I just manifested that we're going to do this deal. And now I had an idea of people that I wanted to talk to about. Everybody, just from having those conversations on a regular basis, just pulled those people in, and that's where we are now. The main thing that I've learned over the years is to take action. It's not always going to be right. You're not always going to get it all right, but you're going to learn from it. So make sure to count that there's, 2 or 3 electrical meters, depending on what you're looking at buying. Don't rent to the Russian party girls. That was another lesson I learned with the very first place that we bought, my wife and I in Kamloops. We had guys that like broke the lease on us in December and, didn't get into his program. So he's just going to go to the oil patch and make. And so we rented to the best of the worst, which was the wrong idea. Just wait until you get good people to rent to and leave it vacant because it's going to cost you way more to clean up all the crap that they leave behind when you have to. Over the years, you just learn these things as you go. You get the experience, but it started by taking that first step, right? And by just jumping in. So use the tools that you have. Property hustle guys here are great. There's lots of team members in the group. There's lots of people that show up that say exactly what they're looking to do. And, like there's a guy the other day that said, anybody have any deals closing soon? I've got partners that are looking to do stuff. I reached out to the guy. Well, it turns out he wants to buy trigger riggy stuff in Alabama. I said, well, I was looking at a multiplex thing. What are your intentions? What are you looking for? What do you want to do? He's basically a matchmaker. So he's bringing people with money in to do the deals and sort of what I'm doing. Well, not working in Alabama, so I'm not going to be able. He says, well, why aren't you doing the deal? I said, well, I've got 2 closings and I've got a 2-year-old. It's summer and I'm just enjoying myself. So it's just not in the cards for me, right? Oh, okay. And then the next thing I would suggest is build a deep bench. So the first deal that I did, we did it with Waltz. The second deal I did, we were doing it with Lend City. Waltz wouldn't touch a deal that's under 100,000. So sometimes you need the right piece to fit into the right place. I've talked to lots of different contractors now. I've got a good one that like I can call him up and say, I need this done. He'll always say yes, even if he doesn't do it himself. He knows the right person to call that will do it. So, and his rates are better than most of the other people. Keep working that side of it. One thing I also would suggest is when you're building relationships, try to actually build a real relationship. So much like with my property inspector, I actually spent some time to like interview him and talk to him. Like most people just call up and book the interview or book the inspection. You get to know somebody and you have that relationship there. It goes a lot farther. Respect people and their time as well, right? Like, I noticed in the chat there was sort of saying how, Danielle, one of the agents that sort of helps out the property hustle guys, going to start charging now for sort of advice and stuff. She only gets paid when you transact on something. So if she's a resource to you, you got to really make sure that, you're looking after them. Like, for example, on the second one that we're buying there on West 48th, I just went online and found that. I could have gone to that agent and just said, hey, I'm going to go to you direct. Like, let's carve a deal here. But I just dropped that in Danielle's lap and said, hey, this is one we're going to write on. And she doesn't, get in the way of things. She's helping me out and she answers my phone when I call her because I'm bringing value to her as well as she's bringing value to me. So consider that. If you book some time to talk with somebody, show up, be on time. I've gone on 100 different coffee dates just to talk to people about investing in this and that. Every time I show up 20 minutes early and I go buy a gift card so that when they show up, I can say, hey, go buy it. That's a much better way of meeting somebody than showing up 20 minutes late and, not knowing what's going on and goofy stuff like that. So just be respectful of other people, build those deep relationships. And that's really what's gotten me through in a lot of my stuff. And as I started off with, just remember, like we went to go buy our first fix and flip place and it turned out to be an 11-year hold. We made really good money on it. We sold it right before a big elevator project came in and we cashed out at the perfect time. Just remember, you can always make another decision. So don't get too stuck in the analysis. Like make a decision. If you need to, make another one. Thanks for your time. My name's Greg Andruff. I'm a Vancouver real estate agent. I've been doing this since 2008. I'm here to help. If you guys have questions, I'm more than happy to set up Zoom calls and do all that kind of other stuff. We can chat about how you can take action and move forward.
Awesome. Thanks for the presentation. That was a really good one.
Thanks.
I think we have some questions here. Does anyone have any other questions or just a couple questions here? Maybe we can answer that first. How do you structure your joint venture with a money partner for your Kirkton property?
Yeah, good question. So for that one, I'm sort of acting as sort of the educator and informer on this one. I know the person personally. So I just basically laid out how I wanted to run it. And they basically said, yep, sounds good. So we are buying it in my personal company to begin with. And then once we do the refinance, we're going to transfer that into its own LLC. So that takes a bit of time to get that side of it going. So talking with the Richard Sharp company there, lawyers, to get the EIN going on that. And basically I structured it so that when we transfer it out of my holding company into this other one, I'm going to be a 30% owner. They're going to be a 70% owner. Got a bit of a stake that I'm trying to help her out. She wants to go on a maternity leave, so they're trying to make some money. So since they're bringing in the 60,000, I'm just going to let them take the cash flow on this one, but I'm charging $100 a month management. I'm making $1,200 a year. It's not a lot, but again, I'm sort of doing this with a friend, just sort of trying to help her out and learn the ropes on this. I'm also taking a fee when the renovations are all finished. So when we do that refi and we're pulling the money back out, I get a management fee at that point as well. And so we've anchored that in that I get paid out $5,000 at that point. So I'm building in set times when I'm getting paid so that I can still make some money. But now they're set up in perpetuity. They own this house that's getting fixed up and it's going to be making them about $250 a month.
That's a really smart way to do it because you're building the service involved, like in that joint venture agreement, which means that at each milestone, you're at least getting compensated regardless of how the market fluctuates.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, when they do 50-50, they don't take out any fee, but they're taking out 50% cash flow or 50% of the equity. When the market was growing really strong, then yeah, it'll make sense, and you're not leaving a lot of things on the table. But if it fluctuates a little bit, it affects your cash flow, then there's no payout as an active investor. So that's a really smart way to do it. Graham also asked about the escalation clause. Like, can we talk about the nuance, the pros and cons, and tells them like how high you're willing to go in, etc.
Again, this is having an experienced agent. Is a tactic that can backfire on you. Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't like this. This doesn't sound good. Basically, what you're offering to do, we use the language that we are willing and prepared to go $2,000 over any other offer that subject to the bank approving that loan to be paid out. So basically, it gives us sort of a tricky look at sort of, okay, this is what it's going to take, and then we can decide whether we're going to go with that or not. Oh, actually, you know what? We're not pre-approved to go to that level. The numbers just don't make sense. I'm not gonna pull that trigger and go. This was 5 grand. So like it wasn't enough of a push to really worry. It didn't take a huge dent. I would have loved to have got it for 10,000 under asking, but it's a competitive market right now. And so, being aware of that up front, and knowing that that was sort of coming, we sort of prepared ourselves for that. When you're writing offers, I remember hearing somebody else say in the chat the other day, like, oh, well, people aren't writing offers at the numbers that I want them to write offers. If you're showing up like before it's even hit the weekend yet and you're trying to get an offer accepted, you can't lowball the hell out of them, right? Like they're just not going to engage at that level. By taking on a strategy like this, we're basically saying, yeah, okay, look, we want to see what level this is going to go to. And if it's something we can work with, we'll pay it. And that basically gives you the knowledge and the power in the deal. Now you have to go back and remove the sheet in the contract that says that you're willing to do that, because you can't have an open-ended contract like that. It's a whim and fancy clause, which makes a contract unbinding. So that's where you're threading that legal line there, where the initial contract that you're presenting isn't going to be the one that gets accepted. Talk to your agent about it, and sort of they can explain a little bit more about how that works. In Canada, certainly that is a gray zone in terms of writing contracts, because not necessarily entitled to see what another offer is. That's supposed to be confidential information. So kind of depends on the agent that you're working with, and you need to be able to have somebody that your agent can explain it to the other agent. Because I don't know if you guys have heard of Pareto's principle or not, but it's the 80-20 principle a lot of the time, right? 20% of the agents do 80% of the business. So you want to make sure that you've got somebody that knows what's going on, is switched on, but sometimes your agent has to be able to educate the other agent in terms of how this is going to operate so that you can get your deal done.
It feels like education on the agents is also a pretty big component of every single acquisition. Yeah. I feel
Yeah,
like the standard in general over there is just not that high yet, hopefully.
yeah, it's funny, right? Like it's just a different way of doing business.
Yeah.
Like down there, like, oh yeah, closing is supposed to be tomorrow. Like on our curtain deal, that's supposed to close tomorrow. Yeah, the title company didn't get back to us yet, so we'll probably close that Monday. Here in BC, you'd be pulling your hair out, like, what are you talking about? We're not closing. Down there, it's just, yeah, that's just how it's just laid back. It'll happen.
Yeah.
And so you just got to know that it's a different way of doing business down there. Um, that's just how they operate. And if you do try to push them to be formal and like, no, I want an answer by that, they're just going to punch you. Like, so just be aware of that. You do sort of have to play into that. It is bizarre.
They end up labeling you because they're not used to that either, right? I noticed that a lot of agents have the mentality that, a buyer is still the buyer's market. Because it has been a buyer's market for the longest time. Buyer usually has a say. If there's a delay, there's not much of a pushback questions from the sellers. They just want to make sure that the transaction still goes through. Yeah, so very different mentality. But I think eventually when obviously like there's certain areas when the competitive market continues, it might slowly change that dynamic of the market. I wanted to ask this question because a lot of people have this specific questions about what actually makes a deal a deal. Like in your opinion, like what's your criteria? What were you actually looking for to determine that, okay, that's something that I want to kind of put an offer on?
Yeah, I sort of approach that. I sort of put a bit of that into the presentation where like I've got sort of the basic rules of the 1% rule. Like you kind of need some basic sort of starting points for that. And so what I'm going to basically do is sort of, as I said, I'll take a Thursday night and I'll sort of pick off like 4 or 5 different potential options that I can sort of see that I think makes sense. And I'm going to just go and do the deep dive, and I do the homework on it to sort of see, okay, out of these 5 options, which ones are the best? Which areas do I like versus others? I mean, it's a pretty dynamic kind of question in the sense that some areas are going to be better than others. Some are going to have better cash flow than others. Some are going to be turnkey. Some are going to need work. So it's a question of what is your bandwidth and what are you really looking for? So reverse engineering that, I'm generally going to be looking first and foremost, what are the numbers? Like when you're buying real estate for yourself and a home to live in, you're really worried about how it looks and what's going on. But investing in real estate, you wear a different hat. Like I'm buying a box that makes me money. Mostly I'm looking for where's my best returns going to be and where's my best potential for return going to be. And so sometimes that's in a burr and sometimes that's just going to be a buy and hold, like we saw with West 48 versus Curtin, right? So in both cases, they both had different advantages at different times in terms of how to make those work. And it was using different strategies. So really, I think the best way I can describe it is you want to have a steady flow of information coming across your desk regularly so that when you see a good deal come up, you can take it.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of either putting those deals in front of you, like just scanning through Zillow and just looking for different opportunities, making sure, like I get text messages all the time from different wholesalers. You got to be able to make a quick decision on something, right? Somebody sends you something, say, like I had one guy, he sent me something. I said, no, I'm just looking in Ohio right now. He goes, oh, okay, I'll put you in my Ohio bar. Now I get Ohio stuff. And then he'll send me something like, this is a really good deal. I would do it, except I just, wrote on something else, yada, yada. Oh, okay, thanks, no problem. But you got to be able to sort of give them a quick answer and evaluate what it is that you're looking at. But the best version of finding good deals is just to get lots of them coming across you. Then you can pick off what you think works best for you.
I think there are two pretty big takeaways that's actually really relevant and important to everybody here. Is number one is like you're pretty clear with that going to this market, like Cleveland, Ohio, this market is specifically for cash flow play. Because in a lot of your calculation, you're not really emphasizing a lot of ARV, right? You're looking at it, what's the cash on cash return, right? And then you're going in with that angle specifically. And number two is once you have that criteria set out, then you're no longer looking around different type of asset class. I guess you're not looking at different
Any object syndrome
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think this is where confusion really comes in. Real estate, there's so many different ways to make money. Okay, without naming all of that, there's so many different ways to do it. But the biggest confusion is at the moment that we're doing sourcing or looking at a lot of information, and then we keep shifting criteria from criteria, different type of metric. Oh, we're looking at Burr method. We're looking at the ARV, and all of a sudden we still want a 1% rule. All of this will then kind of combine together and not make any deal make sense anymore. Yeah, I just want to kind of like point that out because a lot of us are so used to that property cash flowing, and then also at some point we can like do a perfect Burr in the next like 6 to 8 months type of thing. But in today's market, it's just like combining these two metrics together is actually getting quite challenging for any one of us to see the result. Now, I also want to ask one more question. Let's talk about your goal. Like you had a very, very clear goal, had the initial meeting. And then let's talk about your pace a little bit because I find that you're taking a lot of action and now you're picking up that momentum at this moment. So can we share about that?
Sure. I'm a real estate agent. That's a lot of evenings and weekends. And my objective, I've had a very good career with that. I've been doing that since 2008. And that's, I figured, well, if I'm staring at the MLS all day as an investor, I might as well get paid to do this. So I became an agent. And now that I've got a 2.5-year-old, I want to spend my evenings and weekends with him. And so my focus is on becoming a full-time investor. Actually, it's becoming a full-time dad, just that does real estate on the side. So, I've had the fortune of building this portfolio over time. I got in early into this game back in 2008, as I've said. And so for me, going through that process of developing as an entrepreneur and all that kind of stuff, goal setting was always very important to me. And so it's very important that you write down your goals. It takes some time. And that's partly why Ping, we ended up connecting was because, like I said in the presentation, you guys are the shortcut. I could have spent a year floundering and figuring it out myself. In fact, on the background of every time you guys gave me an opportunity or a lead with somebody, I went and found my own person and they cost more, they took longer, they didn't get back to me. I really saw the value in your group and in this investment of working with you guys because you were getting me the results and that was streamlining things for me to take that step forward to become a full-time investor so I can spend more time with my family.
Got it. So when you first started, like a year ago, was it a year ago? Not even a year ago. It was like probably like October. Yeah, yeah. What was your vision, like going into, let's say this summer or even at the end of 2025?
My vision is to sort of get my feet wet. Let's do a couple of deals. I found the sweet spot in investing to be, for myself, traditionally had been looking at the sort of 3 to 4 plex units. That's where you got the best sort of cash flow, the easiest sort of management structures and that kind of thing. What I would like to do, and so now that I've gotten sort of 2 or 3 of these done, and those are just because no-brainers, they made sense, the deals were there. Now that I'm more familiar with the marketplace, my focus is going to be on shifting and scaling that up into multiplex, looking at getting more into the 6 to 12 unit buildings. And now that I've built that way of working with people and I've got the experience of knowing the right title companies to work with, agents, the right inspectors, all that, I built the model now and I'm confident with what I've got. So now I can take this to the next level and scale it up. So that when I am going out and spending real money on bigger projects, I know that I've sort of built the base that works, that has a good sort of backing to it, that's not going to fail me to be able to move ahead and build this up.
7 units so far. Next time that you're doing a presentation, we might be looking at 20 units. Awesome, awesome. Okay, Vin asked if you were just starting out and had about 120K saved, how would you proceed it?
120K is a lot that you can swing with now, so that's good.
So,
Yeah, I mean, what do you want to be doing? I mean, what's your goal? Like, are you looking for cash flow properties? Are you looking for fast cash? You know, you've got some ability to do some deals here. So yeah, I mean, if you're new and starting out, you want to have a chat, more than happy to go for a coffee online or whatever. I know a lot of people are back east. I'm in Vancouver, so it's a little bit weird on the timelines, but you know, just start getting your oars in the water. You can do this just the same as I did. It's just building that machine. Talk to the right people. Set my opinion of starting off is a little different than how some other people do. Like I went in and spent the money, and like I've got a Canadian corporation, I've got an LLC with a partnership and a profit company, and I'm building for maximum impact. That might be different for you. You might just want to sort of see how this goes and buy sort of one or two places. Maybe you can get away with just doing, you know, one LLC. But talk to the right people to set up a good structure. Bing and their guys are going to get you set up there, and then start plugging away. My wife doesn't like sharing her toys, so she doesn't like partnering up with people. She wants us to have our own stuff. Two of the places that we're selling this year are going in Canada, are exiting out of partnerships, and we're going to be flipping our half of those capitals into personal stuff that we're going to do down there. But I recognize that you can't grow and scale without OPM. You can get so far on your own, and that's where we've built our 20 units mostly, is just with ourselves and close friends and sort of people in our circle. But if I'm going to start going after bigger fish, we're going to need a bit. I would suggest get a good agent, go start, just do your homework, learn on the different areas, learn. When we bought our first place in Kamloops, I knew every inch of Kamloops. I knew where the good parts of the city were, where the bad parts were. I talked to 3 different agents. I got all their different opinions. Just start doing the homework. You know, once you find, it will tell you, and you'll know, you'll feel comfortable, you feel confident because you've done the homework and you know it's a good deal.
it kind of goes right to the goal, and then you point backwards to see that what is the sequence, the right sequence of those action, and then you
100%.
yeah, yeah. And also like every single action, like one thing that I really like about what you say is just like even if it doesn't work out, right? So what? Go to the next one. Now you have the data to adjust what type of action you need to make for the following one. Jed asks, do most of your acquisitions come from the offers made on the MLS? And second thing is that what asset class makes up the majority of your portfolio?
Yeah, so I'm kind of 50-50. I wrote 2 offers that didn't go ahead with an agent. I wrote 2 offers that did go ahead with an agent. I wrote one offer on with a wholesaler that didn't go ahead, one offer that did. So I'd say I'm sort of, the MLS just has, or Zillow or whatever you want to use, has lots of data and lots of information. Again, it's kind of about like finding that diamond in the rough. You kind of got to just filter and sort through sort of what you think can work. And some weeks, you know, there's nothing there. You can work with an agent to get you to set up a search for your specific criteria so that you just get stuff coming into you weekly. So like I have another agent that's in Akron, and he's been sending me stuff, and some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. I don't go much past Akron. There's a lot of other small little hamlets in and around because the vacancy rate starts to get away from you. Cautious on going into too small of a town. Akron is sort of like, I don't know, Burlington to Toronto, like it's kind of just the next door over. Hamilton to
Yeah.
Toronto. You know, you're big enough that there's enough people there, but you're not sort of getting too small on it. Most of my portfolio now is in multifamily stuff. So I am just selling off my last condo in my portfolio, and I'm selling off flex, and then I'll basically be triplexes. Now that I've reached that level, like I started off with a whole bunch of condos. Like I said, when the NDP came to BC, I sold off all those condos and I bought into Alberta, and I leveraged up. Then now that I've got all those fourplexes, when it makes sense, when it's the summer, when it's a good seller's market, I took the dog in my portfolio in Edmonton. It's a hot market there right now, so we just took that advantage to sell it now and cash that out because it is a good market, and the other stuff is doing great. It's cash flowing nicely, so we're just going to hold on to that and keep going.
Are you willing to recommend your GC? Who's your GC?
Yeah. Doug, he's a good guy. I don't know if any of you met him. Well, I went on the bus tour and got to meet him while we went to go visit one of the properties. I basically approached him and said, "Hey, look, I'm looking to build a portfolio here. So if you and me want to get along well, I can hopefully feed you some deals and keep you fed. And if you can look out for me, then that would be a great relationship." And he said, "Yeah, I'm in all day." You know, again, it's about building that relationship. And he's trying to sort of build his own stuff, and he wants to maybe get into doing some joint venture stuff. And I said, "Great. If you see some deals out there that you want to get involved with, let me know, and we'll sort of take it from there." So he's done great work for me. Now, sometimes like he sort of quoted me on something. I was like, "Come on, Doug, like that's not a number that makes any sense." He's like, "Okay, okay."
Yeah.
So you know, you do have to keep everybody honest. I verified everything that he's given me in quotes with other people. When we were looking at Curtain, it came with a couple of quotes of like, "Oh yeah, no, we'll do that for 12 grand." It's like, not a chance. And then I got another quote that said, "Yeah, we'll do that for the low 20s." And I took it to Doug. He said, "Yeah, that's low 20s." I was like, "Yeah, okay, that's what I was, you know, backing it up against, right?" So trust but verify. One of my favorite quotes is, you know, trust an elephant, but tie up your camel.
Three
Right?
quote system. Always do three quote system regardless of
Yeah,
who you're working with. Even
yeah.
if had a long-term relationship.
And again, it's the right tool for the job, right? In certain cases, it does make sense. In certain cases, it doesn't. I do the same thing to my property managers. I'll say, okay, what's that going to cost me? And then I take it to Doug and I take it to somebody else. Doug so far wins the bid every time.
Awesome, awesome. Realtors, like they share names?
So yeah, so I work with Danielle Costa, who's with the team. When you first signed me up with her, I don't know if you remember or not, but I called back and was like, is this really your person? I haven't had a greatest run, or maybe it was with Roman, I can't remember. It was right during the holidays. It was in Christmas time and she had been away and doing a bunch of stuff, and just I caught her at a bad moment. She is a good agent. She knows what she's doing. I'm an agent, so I get it. I understand how that whole thing works. I did get taught while she was away. I did meet with her partner, Angelica. No, one quick conversation with her, and she gave me some good gems of advice. She said, you know, what room do you think costs the most to deal with? Yeah, the kitchen. She's like, no, the basement. She's like, that's where all your flooding's going to happen. That's where all your so, oh, great. Okay, well, that's a good tip to know in Cleveland. You're dealing with 100-year-old houses, so those foundations can get leaky and smelly.
Yeah.
That's where you've got some expensive equipment, so we want to address that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. By the way, really appreciate this. This is I think really good demonstration on when you set a right target, right criteria, and you focus on execution, things will happen a lot faster. And it will still be a little bit bumpy in the very beginning, but as soon as you kind of figure out that model and be very comfortable with it, this is where things started accelerating. Most people just don't even head to that point. So
yeah, perfection doesn't exist, right? So a lot of people, from my experience, just working with new people in the investment world, is that they're waiting for everything to be perfect. And that just doesn't happen, right? Like you kind of just got to take a swing. It's like getting up to bat in baseball. Sometimes it's, sometimes you can hit the home run. Sometimes it's a single. So, like you just got to do your best to figure that out.
Right.
It's at this moment that I like to say one of my favorite quotations, which is the perfect is the enemy of the good. And in addition, I don't know if you're familiar with this World War II General George S. Patton. He said, yeah, a good plan executed this week. No, I'd prefer a good plan executed this week than a perfect plan next week. What he's saying is you could wait for the perfect plan endlessly. Never going to happen. As long as you got a good plan, you're good.
Mike Tyson had a great one too. Everybody's got a plan till you get hit in the face.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just about learning and adapting. One of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was you can always make another decision, right? So just get going with it. And at a certain point, we did have to make the other decision. In the first 2 or 3 deals, it was like, yeah, this is just not going the right direction right now. Time to just pull out and we'll find the next one. So what next?
How do you keep all that momentum? Because obviously when you were dishing out the some of the offers, right, that didn't go well, and then you started having, you're feeling demoralized because the offer doesn't go through, you're working with the unprofessional realtors and all that stuff. How do you get through those moments?
At the end of the day, you got to consider that you're the buyer and you don't have to buy that property. Yeah, it sucks. You put some time in or you paid for an inspection and it didn't get to go anywhere, right? You got to just think big picture. And again, it just comes back to goal setting. So I have my goals for the year, and what is my why? What is my motivation? It's spending time with my kids. So yeah, that sucked, but you know what? One more no gets you closer to a yes. And the more that you go through this, the closer you get to what you want to do. You just got to keep banging away until you get somewhere. Effort equals results, and eventually you get there. I just go back to why am I doing this all in the first place? It's for my son. It's for getting that all figured out. I want to retire my wife earlier. She works for BC Hydro, which is a great company. They pay all of our benefits while I have these crazy jobs and do this investing stuff. It's totally wild and out there, but it's a good balance. But I'd love to be able to just say, yeah, the crazy and wild can take over now.
Use your vision to drive your action instead of your emotion to drive your action. So I think you've been in the business long enough to see the ups and downs and then see how people lose momentum, including the newer agents. So I think you apply that perfectly well into that real estate investing journey so far. Okay, by the way, really appreciate this. We definitely need to hop on another call, talk about the next step. I'm pretty sure we can obviously kind of map out the next 6 months again for you. That way we can see what is the best angle to kind of cut into that sixplex and above. Pretty interesting journey. But yeah, thank you so much for your time and then the preparation for the meeting. And then I hope a lot of people have great takeaways from this call. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, guys.